Okay guys, so I'm now going to read the meteorological statistics from the report of Hurricane Maria, and it says like this. Observations in Maria, figures 2 and 3, include subjective satellite-based Dvorak technique intensity estimates from a tropical analyses and forecast branch and a satellite analyses branch. An objective advanced Dvorak technique estimates from the Comparative Institute for Meteorological Satellite Studies at the University of Wisconsin, Madison, Wisconsin. Observations also include flight level, stepped frequency microwave radiometer, which is SFMR, and drop wind sound observations from 22 flights of the 53rd Weather Reconnaissance Squadron of the U.S. Air Force Reserve Command and 8 flights of the NOAA Hurricane Hunter P3 aircraft, and 8 flights of the NOAA Hurricane Hunter P3 aircraft. Data and imagery from NOAA polar orbiting satellites, including the Advanced Microwave Sounding Unit, AMSU, the NASA Global Precipitation Mission, GPM, the European Space Agency's Advanced Scatterometer, ASCAT, and Defense Meteorological Satellite Program, DMSP, satellites, among others, were also useful in constructing the best track of Maria. Ship reports of winds of tropical storm force associated with Maria are given in Table 2, and selected surface observations from land stations and data buoys are given in Table 3. So now I'm going to read the wind and pressure readings. This is important, so pay attention. Don't fall asleep. No se queden dormidos, mi gente, por favor, que esto va a estar interesante. La presión barométrica y el viento es bien importante que lo lean, así que vamos para allá. So, it says like this, and I'm going to read it all out for you. Maria's peak intensity of 150 knots, which is 170 miles per hour, is based on a blend. Well, officially it was 175, but 150 knots is like 170 miles per hour. You guys can correct me if I'm wrong. So, Maria's peak intensity of 150 knots, which is 170 miles per hour, is based on a blend of SFMR, observed surface winds of 152 knots, which is probably 172 miles an hour, and 700 millibar flight level winds of 157 knots, which is like 177 miles per hour. Maria's 65 knot intensity increase over 24 hours on September the 18th makes it tied for the 6th fastest intensifying hurricane in the Atlantic Basin record, which is Hurricane Wilma, possibly Hurricane Andrew, Hurricane Charlie, Hurricane Katrina, Rita, Wilma, and Dean. Possibly Dean, possibly, but Felix, maybe. And okay, let's just say it like this. Let's continue. The intensity of the hurricane when it struck Dominica, 145 knots, 165 miles per hour, is based on an SFMR, observed surface wind, of 152 knots, which, based on quality control by data processing software, is believed to be somewhat inflated, and a maximum 10-minute wind of 130 knots measured at Douglas Charles Airport on the island, which conservatively corresponds to a 1-minute wind of 143 knots. Maria is the strongest hurricane on record to make landfall on Dominica or strike within 60 nautical miles of that island. Let's just read it like this. Let's just read it. Maria's minimum central pressure of 908 millibars is based on an eye drop zone measurement by the Air Force Hurricane Hunters of 910 millibars with 23 knot winds at the surface of surface at 313 UTC on September the 19th. This is the lowest pressure on record of any hurricane in the Atlantic Basin east of 70 degrees west of longitude 70 degrees west, and breaks the record that had been set just a couple of weeks earlier by Irma of 914 millibars. The landfall intensity of the cyclone in Puerto Rico, 135 knots, is based on an extrapolation of the weakening trend noted in the aircraft data after the eyewall replacements began several hours earlier. There were no believable Doppler drift winds on the San Juan WSR 88D radar that supported a higher intensity. Okay, let me read this all again. So the San Juan radar didn't support that intensity, but the Calle radar possibly supported. Maybe supported. So because it was much closer to the eye, to the center where it made landfall. So let's just read it again. There were no believable Doppler drift winds from the San Juan WSR 88D radar that supported a higher intensity. It should be noted, however, tómenlo con nota, it should be noted, however, that in Puerto Rico, winds of Category 5 intensity were almost certainly felt at some elevated locations on the island. So, it's possible that Miren could have been a Category 5 at landfall, and the radars just missed it. Just because the instruments were destroyed long before the inner eye wall hit, because the hurricane force was expanded, like I said in the past video, and the inner eye wall was just hours away. And the instruments failed just because the electricity went out. They stopped recording. The anemometers blew away, and they stopped recording. So, let's continue reading right here. This is interesting. And it says like this. The landfall pressures of the hurricane in Dominica and Puerto Rico of 922 and 920 millibars, respectively, are based on an extrapolation of the system's deepening and filling trends before making landfall in those islands. Several storm chasers observed pressures higher than the estimated minimum value in Puerto Rico, but these observers were not thought to be in the exact center of the hurricane. Well, the only ones that had been in the exact center was Puerto Rican storm chaser Jose Garcia Rivera, American chaser Josh Morganman, and Justin Drake and Simon Brewer. These guys were the only ones, sort of a small club, that were in the exact eye wall, because Mike Tice and from UltimateChase.com and Jim Eds, Jim Eds was in San Juan, and Mike Tice was in Fajardo. So they didn't really catch the center of the storm, the inner eye wall. Well, the majority of Puerto Rico only received like Category 4, Category 3 winds. The western side of Puerto Rico received Category 3 conditions, while the majority of Puerto Rico received Category 4. And only a small area could have gusted to Category 5 in Yabucoa and Humacao. Well, it's possible. It's possible. I don't know. Anyone can correct me. But the double eye wall was probably in Humacao, and the inner eye wall was in Yabucoa. So it says like this. Maria is the strongest hurricane to make landfall in Puerto Rico since a Category 5 hurricane in 1928, known as San Felipe II, which is also the Great Lake Okeechobee hurricane of 1928 also, that did tremendous devastation to West Palm Beach and Lake Okeechobee.